Well, good afternoon, RIT Tigers. My name is Liam Welsh, and I serve as an Executive Director of Advancement in University Advancement supporting student affairs at RIT. A big welcome to our students, parents, alumni, friends, and chaplains, Sentinel Society donors, as well as our spirituality and religious life donors of all faiths, denominations, and spiritualities. Thank you for joining us today for a special conversation with University Chaplain and Associate Director, Center for Campus Life, Andrew Cirillo, as well as an all-star panel of past and present student spiritual leaders and chaplains. Also, special thanks to our interpreters today, Derek and Kirsten. Before we begin, there are a few housekeeping items that I'd like to address at this time. This session will be recorded and shared after the event. We will do our best to facilitate a smooth session today. We have scheduled time for Q&A after the program. If you have a question, please enter it in the Q&A function at the bottom toolbar. Live captioning is also available and can be activated at the bottom toolbar. Before we begin in earnest, I am honored to introduce Dr. Sandy Johnson, RIT's Senior Vice President of Student Affairs, who would like to say a few words of introduction and welcome all of you today. Sandy, I'll pass it to you.
Thank you. I have to say, first of all, it's such an honor to be here with all of you and celebrate 40 years of the Schmitt Interfaith Center, a true cornerstone of belonging and well-being here at RIT. And I want to thank you all for joining us and for your continued support of this remarkable space and the vibrant communities that it serves. At RIT, our students thrive when they can bring their whole selves to campus, their mind, their body, their spirit. And our team in spirituality and religious life helps students reflect on the meaning and purpose in their lives and build interfaith understanding and to find community. It's the work that they do that complements both the academic and the co-curricular experience that really contributes to what we refer to as the RIT experience. And that really directly impacts retention, resilience, satisfaction, and overall student success. And we do this because that's meeting students where they are. It's programs that are embedded into some of the traditions that we have here. At RIT, we love our festivals, and we start off every academic year with our Tiger Fest. And this past year, the Interfaith Council supported a Sand Mandala as part of that Tiger Fest. We launched into Fall Fest, and we did a lunch and labyrinth at Freeze Fest, which is coming up. Last year, we did spiritual symbols, food, and culture from around the world. And then we end our year with Spring Fest, and our Interfaith Center supported a program called Spring, Succulence, and Spirit. So you can see that these kinds of experience being embedded into the fabric of student life really reflect participation and invite students to be active participants in these kinds of activities. And that also includes reflection on their experience and bringing joy, because interfaith engagement is really complementary to every student's RIT experience. Spirituality and religious life does not just partner with those in student affairs. They work across the university. Some of the things that they've worked on the past few years has been with our counseling and psychological services department, on programs like Faith and Feelings, exploring the intersection of spirituality and mental health. They work with our dining partners to support observance and community through programs and services like the Loaded Latka, Passover meals, and Ramadan meals. They also partner with other areas across the campus on community and educational offerings. They really focus across both students and staff. They are partners in the program we call the Cultural Humility Certificate. They have a section there, and that is open to all faculty and staff. So spirituality and religious life is about campus life, and campus life from across all of those communities. The focus absolutely is on our students, but it's inclusion and care that deepen through collaboration. And that helps our students and our staff navigate identity, tradition, and belonging in this really vibrant and diverse community we call RIT. So as we mark this very real and important anniversary, we recognize that there's much more that remains to be done. So we're looking at opportunities for physical enhancements to our spaces and program growth to expand access, honor varied traditions, and sustain the momentum that you, as supporters of our spirituality and religious life programs, have helped us to build. We will be doing this in partnership with Campus Life and University Advancement so that we can serve our students in more vibrant, more deep, meaningful, and inclusive ways. So your steadfast support of the Schmitt Interfaith Center and Spirituality and Religious Life's mission makes this work possible and keeps us centered on our vision. And so with that, I want to introduce our moderator. Andy Cirillo is the university chaplain and associate director in the Center for Campus Life for Spirituality and Religious Life. And Andy joined the RIT community in January of 2022, and he has led a team that serves the entire campus, supporting agnostic, atheistic, faith-based, secular, and spiritual communities through outreach and ministry. Andy's previous experience includes serving as campus minister for advancement at the Catholic Newman Community Center at the University of Rochester. We are grateful that he came over to us, over on this side of Rochester. Andy holds a BA in religion from the University of Rochester and both a master's in divinity and a master of arts in systematic theology from the Catholic Theological Union in Chicago. Andy is overjoyed to celebrate this anniversary. He has been talking about this and is excited about what the years to come will bring us. So I'd like you to help me in joining Andy to this webinar. Andy, take it from there.
Thank you, Sandy. Let me just queue up my presentation here. Let's see. Great. Can everyone see that? We good? All right. Wonderful. So, thank you, Sandy, for that wonderful introduction. And thank you to the advancement team, particularly Liam and Karen Humbert from behind the scenes, really helping to make this event what it is, a look back at the 40 years of Schmitt, to celebrate the generosity of Caroline and Killian and the Schmitt Family Foundation, its continual legacy today. So thank you very much for being here, to all the alumni, the parents, the current students, the community members, and anyone who engages in spiritual life and who really sees spiritual life as a necessity today. Not something of a bygone era, but something that is really needed and helps transform students into dialogical partners and civil leaders for the future. So the students are doing it, they're doing it right. The chaplains are guiding them and doing amazing work. And I'm really proud of this center and really honored to be leading this amazing group of chaplains, student leaders. So thank you very much. So we will move forward. I want to move us through a rather quick presentation, about 15 minutes, on a little bit of the history and roots of interfaith work, interfaith life, spirituality, and religious life on campus at RIT. And it really starts with the first university chaplain, Reverend Murray Cayley Sr., who was appointed in 1941. He can be seen as a forerunner figure, and RIT obviously had a need. And Reverend Cayley, who was also the first Presbyterian church pastor downtown when RIT was located downtown, he delivered. He started the role part-time, and he was at RIT for about 25 years. He transformed the space, allowed students to engage in deep questions that SRL still has part of its mission and vision today, to seek answers to those deep questions of meaning, purpose, and value, and allowed students to explore what they might want to see from a spiritual presence on campus. Of course, Hillel and Newman answered that call as well, They became the first student clubs on campus, representing our Jewish and our Catholic students in 1954, both at the same time. So nearly 15 years after Reverend Cayley's entered the scene, students' needs grew and allowed communities to form around that need. As we all know, in 1968, RIT moved from downtown Rochester to our home base now in Henrietta, and the office of the chaplain was set up formally. This would become the Department of Campus Ministry in 1972. And of course, we've had a few name changes since then. Center for Religious Life in 2004, and with some changes in structure re-envisioned within Center for Campus Life as it currently is, as the Office of Spirituality and Religious Life in 2017, which I now have the privilege of managing. But these name changes, these investments on the RIT side into religious and spiritual life and coordinated religious and spiritual activity says something about the students' needs, the growing and diverse student body, and the ability for RIT, even during the times of the 50s, 60s, 70s, and 80s, to answer the call to be an exclusively inclusive community, to allow students to have a landscape where they're able to explore, talk with one another, work out problems, agree to disagree, and create opportunities for civil dialogue, opportunities to be able to grow and go out into the world, and to do the same, because that's what we have to do as adults on a daily basis. Work with people across the aisle, those we may not necessarily agree with, those we may not share a faith system or belief system with or a value system with. And so I'm really happy that this sort of historical trajectory happened from really the student side and from their desire. So we'll move on to the next slide. The first two groups, as I mentioned, the Newman Club and the Hillel Club, both established in the 50s, were really meant to be universal clubs that answered the call to student need. At the outset, these were really led by students, helped create the growing need for permanent full-time chaplains to enter the scene. I do want to mention that other early communities included the following: the Rochester Area Council of Churches, which was organized under Reverend Canon David Edmond, who you see on the screen, happened to be Reverend Cayley's successor in 1965, after he retired. He became RIT's first full-time chaplain and guided the ecumenical Christian movement as one of the main Protestant ministers. And alongside the Rochester Area Council of Churches and working collaboratively with them, we see during this time period InterVarsity Christian Fellowship entering the scene, Cru, formerly known as the Campus Crusade for Christ, and a few short years later, we'll see our Lutheran partners, who then would eventually become the Table Lutheran Episcopal Campus Ministry, join the scene. So just a wonderful array, what we see as a burgeoning opportunity for student need and the chaplain's ability to answer those needs and create permanent communities on campuses, not just the sort of come in, do some ministry, do some counseling, and leave sort of ministries. Really what RIT was investing in was a permanent presence for permanent support. With the 70s and the 80s, we really need to talk about the dawning of a need and what that means. Operating in the mindset from the 40s to the 70s was the role of the RIT chaplaincy, or the Office of the Chaplain, and how it was really established to minister to the students' religious and ethical needs. Most of the chaplains were part-time, talking about 15 to 16 part-time chaplains, with about 3 full-time chaplains, representing a short conglomeration of Catholic, Jewish, and Protestant students. So really an off balance for a growing student body. And as you can imagine, by the time of the 70s and the 80s, this wasn't adequate, right? It wasn't future holding. I did find out in my research through the RIT archives that they were located up right near where Sandy's office is today, on the second level of the Student Alumni Union, which I did not know. I thought that was a fun little fact of trivia. But what they really focused on, and is this first picture, it comes from a pamphlet from their office during that time, is counseling and a few other things, instruction or education, and of course, religious worship, right? So all these things interacting together and utilizing the students' experience in the classroom and conglomerating all them together to really create a holistic worldview. Related to that, on the next picture in the middle, we'll see the Berdice Beale Memorial Chaplains Fund. This was created at the behest of a certain Dr. Beale in honor of his late wife, who was connected to the university, that really wanted to see the intersectional connection between religion and education brought to the forefront. In a time when, of course, in society, things may have been going in a different direction. Significant effort and money was developed. And I want to say that I'm happy that this endowment has endured. We still use this today. It is quite sizable, and it allows our chaplains to engage in meaningful work from their own denominations, as well as interfaith work that is put on by my particular role as the university chaplain, as well as the Interfaith Council, which our student presenter will talk about in a few minutes. So it's just a wonderful legacy that ties together the growing need of what would be completed in the Schmitt Interfaith Center. And finally, the last picture on the right side there, although it might be hard to read, talks about the official case statement for an RIT Interfaith Center, the official need, developed in coordination with the Office of Development at the time, and now known as Advancement. When we hear that 1/3 of the student body at that time, which was around 16,000 students, believe it or not, in 1982, was attending some sort of service, religious, spiritual, or activity every single week. They were doing so mostly in Engle Auditorium, but as the student body grew, they were at capacity with a reservable space. And so what do we do as a campus? How do we meet with students? How do we counsel students? There's a lack of private offices. You know, if we're having 18 chaplains, how does this all work? How does it all fit together? Well, we needed someone to come in and help. We needed a benefactor, really a sort of a savior figure, to be able to answer the call. And who did we have? We see the Schmitt family, Killian and Caroline Schmitt particularly. Killian was a man who was a German immigrant, very much invested in the success of students. He created an international student scholarship that I found out about in the archives during his research at RIT because of his experience from the 20s to the 30s as a student at the Mechanics Institute, the precursor to RIT. And he built a successful empire with that degree in the parking lot business, believe it or not. Not something we hear about today in downtown Rochester. He poured that money into success for educational institutions, which had given so much to him. On June 15th, 1983, on the occasion of his 50th anniversary of his graduation from RIT, in a dedication ceremony, he committed to giving $750,000 to fund an interfaith center from a growing need that we just talked about. He stated, and the quote is right there, "The world needs more religion and education, and I want to help a bit." Just think about that as it ties directly into the Beale Fund need and what that main impetus was behind. And really the students' desire to continue to dissect the intersectional relationship between faith, education, and going out into the world to transform it. So you'll see here just a bit of the early renderings of the Allen Memorial Chapel, which actually looks quite similar to what it actually is today. And then from design to completion, finalized on May 17th, 1985, it was about a 2-year process. Quite an amazing endeavor. And I will give kudos to the ancestors of our advancement team, Liam and Karen on the call, that they did this amazing work in, I believe, 4 short months, raising the remaining $750,000 at that time to finish the project. Absolutely astounding. So I really want to thank, obviously, Killian and Caroline for this amazing building, this amazing legacy, this amazing money that has endured and has allowed students to grow in their faith and their community. And I want to continue to say thank you to the Schmitt Family Foundation, which has transformed not only RIT, but the larger Rochester community, and which actually has endowed this position that I'm in as well for operational support. So I'm deeply indebted personally as well to their legacy. Here, I want to talk a little bit about the faith communities that are represented here at RIT, and I know it's a lot. So I'll let you digest this for a few seconds here before we kind of explain this a little bit. So as you're reading over this, you'll see we nearly have 25 or 26 faith communities on this campus. Many of them are Christian, as you can see, variety from evangelical to non-denominational, to Catholic, to Orthodox, to mainline Protestant, and many who are in communion with each other and work together collaboratively to advance justice, peace, and witness in the world. And it's just an amazing, amazing community where no pressure is given to students, no pressure is put on students, no statements of faith, really just to create authentic community and fellowship. We have a contingent and representation from each of the major faith groups that the world knows: Buddhism, Hinduism, Islam, paganism, or earthbound spirituality, Judaism, obviously Christianity, as we mentioned, and of course the interfaith and secular movement. And I'm very proud to say that the Interfaith Council was formed officially just this past fall, and our Secular Student Alliance, which represents secular humanist students, is well on its way to final approval. It should be ready in the spring semester in a few short weeks. This sort of uniqueness of our chaplain body as well I want to highlight. As you can see there in the lower right corner, we have 14 chaplains, those students of the Guild who have received amazing training, graduate degrees in theology, those who have gone on through clinical pastoral education, the gold standard for what it means to be a chaplain, to be able to listen, to accompany, to walk with students. Many do their residencies in hospitals and mental health institutions. So these are very versatile group of individuals that really are there in a really highly developed way for our students. We also have 12 program and support staff who support every imaginable need, from logistics to activities to food to everything you can think of for the groups and the maintenance and the function of these institutions. And 12 of these members are full-time. So you kind of see the flip, the reverse of what it was like in the 70s and the 80s when most of them were part-time. And you can see this is a direct result of the students' needs and their desires, and we are able to deliver upon that because of the physical space we now inhabit. The impact, this is a direct result of this building. This is a direct result of the Beal Fund that you saw earlier. It's a direct result of all the hard work that was put in by students and chaplains and staff. And of course, on the RIT side, their investment into making this all come together. These are our numbers from last year from our annual report that we put together. We had over 25,000 student attendees at individual spiritual, religious, and secular events, which is just incredible, at nearly 1,400 events. These include worship events, rituals, so on and so forth, fellowship events, anything of the sort. It's absolutely incredible how much engagement happens on this campus in this particular way. As I mentioned, there are about 25 or 26 different communities at this current time, and this is probably a lower estimate number, but there are nearly 125 student leaders. Absolutely incredible. Some of the programming that we see here on this next slide is just a very short slew of the amazing things that we do, from engaging in the festivals that Sandy mentioned a few moments ago, to creating really, really amazing opportunities to celebrate around the occasions, festivals, celebrating, working with the orientation team. We talked about the Interfaith Sand Mandala earlier, where students have the opportunity to engage in formal interfaith dialogical work, working with a Tibetan-trained Sand Mandala artist. With Freeze Fest, we celebrate culture, symbols, food, religious, spiritual, and otherwise, from around the world, working with our Global Union major student organization on campus, which represents our international students. Our Vigil of Remembrance, put on together collaboratively with the Interfaith Council, usually each fall or each spring, to talk about a particular time of rebirth, renewal, and remembrance as we seek to wade through the loss of war, of famine, of disease, of illness. So I'm proud to say that we, also featured our first, under the guidance of Chaplain Sam, who you'll hear from in a few minutes, featured our first interfaith lessons and carols, which, as some of you may know, is traditionally an ecumenical Christian service. And putting a historical bent on this and providing an interfaith lens was absolutely incredible just last week. Our Interfaith Fair, as you can see on the top there, was put on and guided by our Interfaith Council, where they invited nearly 25 different religious communities and spiritualities from both on campus and off campus to display to students of how and what they can engage in during their time at RIT. Of course, we've done some interfaith blessings of animals in the spirit of St. Francis of Assisi on his feast day in October. We've engaged, as Sandy mentioned, with CAPS, Counseling and Psychological Services, to talk about the intersection of spirituality and mental health and how very important it is to our students to be able to engage in both of those topics at the same time to reduce stereotypes and prejudices. And finally, our Spring Succulents and Spirit event that Sandy mentioned, a time to come together over succulents, something easy to take care of during a very stressful time at the end of the spring semester. Just a wonderful time to get together and take your mind off the stress that ensues. We move on here. These are some of the live in-depth pictures that we've gathered from a few of the events across campus. On the top left, you'll see the Interfaith Fair that I mentioned. The middle top is our Labyrinth Walk, which we do in collaboration with our Year 1 Programs Office on campus through their RIT 365 program. It's incredible to help guide our students in a slightly spiritual activity to talk about purpose, meaning, and values. The top right was a dialogical dinner with our chaplains, the Hindu and pagan chaplains, exploring what that means, what their training was, talking with them and learning with them. Bottom left was the Interfaith Sandala mentioned, and there's the Tibetan trained artist doing the amazing work and working and guiding students alongside of her. Fundraising for various local and abroad causes. Our Interfaith Council, led by a past president there, selling roses on Valentine's Day to do so. And then finally in the lower right corner was our Succulent and Spirit event to get through the rest of the spring semester and finals on the lower right. Summing it up here on our resources. And I think this is our best kept secret, a lot of these things. Chaplains, I think we've talked about it before, we can talk about it again. We are confidential resources. We are here for students. We are here for spiritual and pastoral care. We walk with, we guide, we really just help in whatever way we can. And we work collaboratively with our Ombuds office and our counseling office on campus, who are both also confidential resources. Of course, we have meditation spaces, we have chapel spaces, we have multi-purpose spaces on campus for gathering, which we will see on the next slide. Partner organizations and clubs. These groups that we talked about on the faith community slide, many of which are student-led, many of which are chaplain-led, they all work together through the support of this office, and there's support and guidance from our Interfaith Council as well in bringing the disparate groups together. Religious services, you can see here that we run the full gamut of all religious services, rituals, and prayers, and everything that happens on a weekly basis. It's quite incredible to walk through this space on any given day, be able to experience this. Religious literacy and education. Not only do we talk about accommodations with our faculty and our staff for major religious holidays, fasting and work, we provide workshops for students, staff, and faculty. We are present at all major festivals, as we've mentioned. We work collaboratively with orientation activities and all facets of student affairs. It's quite the amazing thing that we run here, and we are invited to take part from our campus partners in all these engagements because they really value this work. And finally, interfaith dialogue, which ensues both formally and informally. Formally through some of those events that I've mentioned, the workshops, the San Mandala events, spiritual symbols, where you actually take in amazing amounts of information and asking pertinent questions, learning to agree to disagree, working through principles of dialogue and understanding what that means. And then, of course, the informal education that really forms the bulwark and foundation to keep going back and doing the formal work. Through fellowship, through games, through activities, through meals, anything that is shared across boundaries. And these are our current facilities. Some of you have seen them, some of you may remember them, some things have changed. Over 40 years, we've upgraded the technology, we've got new appliances, new chairs and carpet, had additional resources, so on and so forth. But, right, as Sandy mentioned earlier, we hope that we will continue the momentum as we move forward into the 50th anniversary and really invest into what our students are craving, what our students are asking for, what they really need in a space like this. A space for supportive and creative expression and innovation in the spiritual realm. So that is it for my portion. I want to thank you for your attention, and I want to kind of move into the panelist discussion at this moment in time. Stop. Okay. So if our panelists can join, I will do a slight introduction. So before moving on, I want to introduce you to the wonderful guests that we have with us. From a current interfaith chaplain to an exceptional student leader to a revered alumnus, I am honored to be able to ask them a few questions today about their experience at RIT, their impact or felt influence on the RIT interfaith community, as well as how and what their history, whether long or short and in various ways, may imply about what is to come of the future of spirituality and religious life and the legacy of the Schmitt Interfaith Center. So from the Progressive Chapel community, we have Chaplain Reverend Sam Kinsman. From the student side, we have Perry Lindstrom, an English major, class of 2028, Interfaith Council President, RIT Pagans President, and SRL student employee. We have an alumnus, AJ Siegel, class of 06, major information technology, and past president of the RIT Hillel Jewish Student Union for about 3 years. Thank you to all of you for joining us today. And as a quick reminder again, from some of the just logistical notes, please enter any questions you have either about my presentation or for the panelists in the Q&A button on the bottom toolbar, and we'll also respond to as many as we can at the conclusion of the panel discussion. So we're going to jump right in, and the first question is for Chaplain Sam. Sam, you are one of the more recent chaplains to join the SRL team, as well as being the leader of a more radically inclusive, diverse, and crunchy granola type spiritual community on campus, coming over to RIT in 2023. Could you explain to us your origins and philosophical approach to ministry and how that works with our student body and impacts them for success at RIT?
Thanks, Andy, and thank you for that incredible presentation. Hearing the history, it's so neat how our personal journeys converge with tradition and history that have always existed here due to a lot of people's good work. I'm just so grateful to be a part of it. Hi, y'all. My name is Sam Kinsman. You can call me Chaplain Sam. And to answer Andy's question, I'm going to tell a little bit of my story. And Andy, you'll have to wave your arms if this sermon goes on too long because I'm a preacher and you got to be careful. So I grew up in rural California, and according to family lore, I told my big sister Amanda when I was 6 that I wanted to work in a church and help people. And so when I consider sort of calling, I'll use some Christian language in my story because I am a minister. But when I first understood calling, it was a very innate feeling before it was anything else. So as a young man, I went to a big church in California, and I was told by the leaders of that church when I was 11 that I was called to ministry. So I received the gift of tongues. It was a Pentecostal charismatic church, and I started preaching and taking ministry very seriously. And along the way, in 8th grade, I had a dream about my history teacher's chest hair and woke up and said, that can't be right. I'm supposed to be the best Christian boy California has ever seen. And so there were some fraught years where I really struggled with my identity. I struggled with how I could be a Christian and with my queerness, with being a member of the LGBTQ community. So I ended up going to a private Christian college and declaring youth ministry as my first major. I was doubling down on doing the right thing and duty and obligation. And when I did so, my faith really ended up fragmenting. My mental health was in a really rough spot. And so really to feel myself alive and to feel myself breathing a little deeper, I let my faith fragment and walked away from Christianity and ran into the arms of the theater, as so many people do. And so I ended up getting a bachelor's and then a master's in acting, which brought me out to South Carolina and then to Brooklyn, where I did some off-Broadway theater. And while I was pursuing life as an agnostic, I called myself an atheist a lot of years. The community of the theater and art making and storytelling was a balm and a life raft for me. And so the strangest thing happened when I lived in Manhattan. I was called back to ministry through a funny way. First through Manhattan's LGBTQ synagogue, through Congregation Bet Simchat Torah, and then through this church in the West Village, Judson Memorial Church, which is both United Church of Christ and American Baptist affiliated. So as I think about how I got back to chaplaincy, it was very slowly process based. And having really considered a career in healthcare, I just began to say yes to my childhood dream and this calling. And so coming back to chaplaincy and then getting back to my original plan, which was to work in the church and help people and to help young people feel more named. Being a chaplain at RIT, it seems maybe the rightest decision I've ever made. Student advocacy and accompaniment is my day-to-day work. I love having an actor's toolkit because teaching students how to tell stories and how to be more present is a huge part of my work. And for many of us, it's always been interfaith. It's always been the multiple faiths and traditions working together like a double helix so that we can help students discover their life's purpose and their mission and where their journeys are going to lead. So I'll get off my soapbox, but I just want to reflect the gratitude I have for joining the history of what spirituality and religious life has been at RIT, but also to speak on behalf of many of us chaplains. It's just such an honor to see what our students are doing and their creativity and their audacity and boldness and the work of accompaniment, of walking through life's challenges with our students. It's one of the best decisions I've ever made. So it's a great pleasure to meet you all, and I can't wait to get to know you better.
Thank you, Sam. Wonderful, wonderful. Sharing your story and your vocation. Perry, you're up next. It has been quite a year since you became involved with the spiritual community overall on campus. From learning the ropes and being hired into the SRL Interfaith Coordinator role last spring, to submitting a successful application for the Interfaith Council to become official as a major student organization, in addition to balancing a demanding class load, all the while leading another spiritual community as president, the RIT Pagans Club. How do you do it, and what does this work mean to you?
Thank you. How do I do it? Definitely a loaded question, but to really break it down, I have to say the support I've received from you, from Mark Goldman, Ronzi, the pagan chaplain, all the chaplains that just work around the office and are always willing to help me and answer my questions. The general SRL community, so many people just love hanging out around here, and they're always happy to help me as well. So it's the aid I've received from all of you, all of these people that have made my transition into these positions not only possible, but like fun and exciting and something I'm so happy to do every single day. Um, yeah.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. AJ, as an alumnus, you are involved with your alma mater quite heavily. Regarding spiritual life, how are you keeping in touch with SRL and its affiliated faith communities, and why is it important for alumni to be involved? Thus, could you tell us a little bit about your time on campus and what inspires you to remain engaged after graduating?
Yeah, thank you, Andrew. I'm part of the Jewish Life Advisory Council, working with other alumnus, parents, university staff on what it means to be a Jewish student at RIT. So we spend time really making sure that this is a welcoming community, which it certainly is for Jewish students and continues to be. So that's been a really fascinating way to stay in touch with the campus. As a donor, it's also a way to see the impact of my dollars and see what's happening with things like Loaded Laka getting established. And it's really important to me because Hillel and Jewish life on campus and religious life on campus were so fundamental to my 3 2/3 years on campus as a pre-semester system student. I think one of the most interesting things is you mentioned those 125 documented leaders of religious organizations at RIT. those are the future leaders in whatever fields they go into. That opportunity to run a club on campus and make decisions about an organization shape our ability to lead in our careers. I learned things through failure. I learned things through success during my time at RIT, and also the sense of community, as I mentioned earlier. So yeah, it was great for my career and cool and whatever, but I was 350 miles from home in a new community that I'd never been to before. And people find fraternities and sororities, sports, religious communities, campus life, etc., to find their community. And for me, it was Hillel, and it was so fundamental to my time on campus. I want to make sure that that exists for other students as well.
Wonderful. Thank you so very much. Sam, we're back to you. Round two. So you are an ordained minister in the United Church of Christ, which I believe you mentioned. Could you tell us a little bit of your journey toward RIT specifically, maybe your background, why you think you ended up here, right? Because I think your first calling was to our neighboring institution across the river. And what are your future visions for your particular community, the RIT Progressive Chapel community, and the interfaith model in general? That is such an important part of the Schmitt legacy.
Thanks, Andy. One of the things that drew me to getting ordained in the United Church of Christ was really, and I'll get very geeky here, this idea of the polity, the structure and governance of the UCC. It's in what's called a congregational model. And so that means that it's more bottom up than it is top down or dogmatic. And that really appeals to me for a few reasons, ethically and, of course, in how the work actually happens. So I love the UCC structure because it is folks working together. One of the sort of ethoses is the autonomy of the local church. And that word autonomy doesn't mean I do what I want. It means let's have a conversation about how things are going to go. So in terms of what I've experienced as a Christian person in an interfaith setting, my time doing clinical pastoral education through the Jewish Theological Seminary when I did hospice work. My ordination in the UCC prepares me to do interfaith work as an imperative, as a starting point, because the expression of Christianity I grew up in was about being right and proving that rightness. And, as an adult minister, that just doesn't quite sit right in my spirit. So for the Progressive Chapel community and what could happen next, it's so powerful to just show up with my beloved colleagues like Mark and Ronci and Ryuman with our Buddhist students. And we are in the process of listening to our students and responding to what they need. And for PCC specifically, that deals with a lot of work around spiritual trauma, as I have my own. I call it integrated scar tissue. I also think it involves hybridizing and synthesizing the sacred and the secular. RIT has a lot to say about what I'll call fandom and faith, about how those two concepts, being a geeky, ethical, spiritual person, there's a lot of synergy there. And so yeah, I'm really excited for what could happen next because the students are speaking. They're speaking from their lives and experiences. And if we listen and resource, something really exciting could happen.
Thank you. I think that sums up our students perfectly, although they continue to surprise us every day. Perry, back to you. You study, work, and hang out in the Schmitt Interfaith Center, I think, nearly every day. I see you here, not when you're just on shift. What does the Interfaith Center mean to you? Its history of what it has aimed to accomplish, and what do you envision for the future of your two communities that you're involved in, as you mentioned, as we move toward the 50th anniversary of Schmitt?
As for what it means to me, truly, it's become a second home. As you said, I'm here pretty much every day. It's a place for my community of my faith, as well as just my friends, and it's just something that's become part of my life. Sometimes I like to think about how it all started here as well, just one day on a whim, deciding to show up to the Pagan Club open house. It was in the Skolny room. The projector wasn't working, and it took like 15 minutes to set up, but Lauren just kept pushing through, my predecessor. And I just got to meet the most incredible community of my whole life, and that was just how it all started, like in the Interfaith Center. So I don't know. I think it's an incredible place where any community can feel open to just coming out of their shell and opening themselves up to the world and the broader RIT community to reach out and just show that we're here and we have people that are with us all the time. I don't know. It's really nice. And yeah, I guess that's for what it means to me. But with what I envision for the future of both the IC and Pagan Club is a lot of the goals of the Schmitt Interfaith Center align perfectly with the IC and with Pagan Club, just in demystifying and dismantling structures of discrimination and misinformation and just isolation for so many of our groups. Uh, and I envision a future where the council and my club uh, grow big enough to just be a resource that people can know about. Because I feel like people still struggle to find their communities. Like it took me 4 years to find Pagan Club, and I finally got here, and it's the best thing that ever happened to me. But I just, the outreach is something I strive for. And I think we're really getting there this semester with the Interfaith Council. And I think it's only going to keep on growing, and we're going to do more awesome interfaith events. And I'm just really excited to see what the next semester has to hold. So, yeah.
Thank you so much. Looking forward to that future as well and walking with you alongside of you. AJ, you are quite removed from campus these days physically, with you residing and working in the DC area, but nevertheless, you stay engaged. What are you most proud of that Jewish Student Life and RIT Hillel have accomplished since you've been away?
I was when I first got involved in Jewish life, the loaded latke or kosher dining on campus before the name came up was the big theme we were talking about and getting the fundraising, working through the logistics. I think we were in the midst of COVID too. So just like getting equipment was really hard. So I know it took a while to get everything to come together, but what an amazing opportunity for students on campus that have they follow kosher rules or other religious dietary rules to have a place to go. I remember students when I was at RIT having to go off campus or maybe this was the good thing at the time, they got to live in better housing because they needed to have a kitchen even as a freshman. So there's like some exemption that some of them got because they need to be able to cook their own food because they couldn't eat the food on campus. So I think it's valuable to the campus to expose folks to the kosher culture, but it's also very welcoming to Jewish students to know there's a place they can go to eat on campus that respects their religion.
100% agree. Amazing, amazing opportunity that presented itself with some amazing donor support and an amazing outcome. It's been incredibly successful and everyone loves it. Everyone.
I
So,
think there's somebody that had them cater their wedding in the last 12
yes,
months too,
that
which
is
is pretty
true.
cool.
That is 100% true. Yes, featured in the RIT news. So if you haven't seen it, go back and look. Um, we do have one question that came through the chat. We have got a few minutes left, and this one happens to be for Perry. So Perry, would you mind sharing what you think is the student perspective on faith in general? What is the ethos of faith on campus? Like from a general student perspective, do they engage in it? Are they afraid of it? What is that?
I'd say it definitely ranges from student to student, especially areas on campus. In the SRL, it's something that's a constant topic of conversation, not for any particular reason, but just because we love learning about each other, and there's just so much to learn all the time. Just having so many people of different faiths all in one place, it's just it just happens. Um, and around campus, I'd say many people are curious and they definitely are respectful of different religions, at least from my experience as a pagan. I've gotten lots of questions about my faith and how I worship, and I haven't run into anything bad so far. And I'd say it's pretty welcoming and pretty calm, though. Uh, it's always safe to look out, but I'd say RIT is a good community for faith and religion.
Great. Yeah. And maybe, Sam, maybe you want to tack onto that as well. I mean, I know your community um, has a lot of individuals in it who are seeking, exploring, maybe suffering a little bit from church trauma that you mentioned earlier. So what does that question sort of mean to you and your community?
Yeah, I've noticed PCC students, there's a lot of folks who are unaffiliated with any faith and spiritual tradition. And on our Discord server, of all places, sometimes we'll have coffee together and have these deep talks between folks who identify as Christian and folks who identify as agnostic or atheist. And we've had text study together where we've looked at a passage and students have asked questions, has this piece of text been used to hurt or harm? And people will share from, their own individual experiences. But to just echo what Perry said, even students who are unaffiliated bring that curiosity and wanting to know more. And that's one of my favorite things about the RIT student population is they're willing to decenter themselves to learn more about their neighbors. And that's been really clear in our community that identifies as Christian, but also has space for seekers and folks who are unaffiliated. It's pretty great to see.
Thanks, Sam. Got another question in the chat for AJ. From your perspective, AJ, what is interfaith at RIT like? Why should it matter? Maybe from a Jewish perspective, I'm guessing is what the question might be trying to ask.
Yeah, I spent a lot of time in the Center for Religious Life, and just similar to Perry, like just physically being in that space, you met religious leaders from other faiths, you met community members from those faiths, and like that's life. Like that's where we'll be in the workplace. Like we all have to work together and get along. So the more we understand each other's cultures, the more accepting I think we become rather than living in our own bubbles. Hilla House was an amazing retreat, right? It was in the tunnels of the dorms at the time, and there's that great place for us to practice our religion and get together as a small community. But it was also great to be out in the open and be practicing amongst our broader community that we are a part of. And so whether that was having services in the CRL or doing stuff on the quarter mile, the ability to be present and share our faith, not to necessarily attract people to our faith, but to help with understanding, was an amazing experience, both as a participant in that and an observer of that as well. And I think everybody benefits from seeing the diversity of cultures here on campus and in the country we'll live and work in the future.
Great, thank you. And I have one more question for each of you. You can answer in whatever order. But what is your favorite memory program thing about SRL, the Schmitt Interfaith Center, how it all comes together? What are you most proud of? What sticks out in your memory from your time and experience here within spirituality and religious life at RIT?
I'm happy to keep going because it's similar to the theme we were just talking about. But my grandfather is a Holocaust survivor. He passed away 14 years ago, but for 30, 40 years of his life, he was sharing his story all throughout Connecticut, where I'm originally from. And I had the opportunity when my sister was in college to bring him to speak at Union College in Schenectady. And then, of course, I had the opportunity to bring him to RIT when I was a student. And he spoke in the CRL. So it was not a event for Jewish students. I think it may have been in the spring around Yom HaShoah, which is the memorial holiday for the Holocaust. But it's an open event. And today, I still remember the importance of sharing those stories. Not, it's a story of trauma and pain, but also of survival to a broad community to understand the journey of being a Jew in the modern era. And in fact, today I still tell his story now in schools around the DMV for the same reason, right? We, as a Jewish person, like we have experienced trauma like many other communities, and in understanding that trauma, we understand some of the psyche that we bring to conversation. And so I think it's really important that I had that opportunity at RIT to bring my grandfather and share his story and also show him campus too, right? Just having him there in Rochester was pretty special. And then continue to be able to do that because of the impact I saw doing that at RIT.
Thank you, AJ, and thank you for bringing your grandfather's legacy into the call. May his memory be for a blessing.
Thank you.
I I really resonate with that because storytelling and the invoking from stories is it's a resonant part of so many of our traditions and what brought us here. One of my favorite memories was taking a group of interfaith students to the Ripple Arts and Theology Conference at Elon University last winter. And it was dangerous going as we drove down in the storm, but by the time we got to the Carolinas, we were all right on the road. And it was a powerful moment for me because we had two of our Jewish student leaders, one of our pagan student leaders, an integrated sort of Catholic student who was a part of PCC. And this storytelling component that AJ reminded us of was just a huge part of my work. We had long car rides to talk about our favorite musicals, and I heard about one of our Hillel student leaders' ethos around game design. There was actually a lot of his expression of Judaism in his game dev work. And so just getting to accompany in a literal sense and getting to be the mama bear that, kept students safe at a conference, it revealed to me what how simple chaplaincy actually can be. Showing up, bringing my full self and keeping students safe is my job. And all of the religious trappings are just a part of that. So I hope to do that work more and more as we go.
For me, I'm a bit biased, but my favorite memory has to be the first Mavon ritual I attended, just the first pagan club ritual I attended as part of the club. I remember Ronci running it. It was beautiful, and so many members of the community were just a part of it, reading our different quarter calls. And before that moment, I didn't realize that my faith was something I could celebrate with other people because of how it's perceived often in the media. I thought it was something that I'd always have to keep to myself and I wouldn't really be able to share with the world. And finding a community at RIT and experiencing it in the moment was just mind-blowing to me. It is something that I will never forget. And I'm so happy that I found this community and just the wider SRL community. So
Thank you, all of you. The authenticity is just palpable. It's wow. I hope you all see it who are on the call and on the recording. And I hope you see the impact that this center, that this legacy, this long legacy going back to the 40s has made upon these three individuals specifically. Before I hand it over back to Liam, I want to express my sincere gratitude for all those who showed up today in support of the Schmitt Interfaith Center. Whether you have been touched by the center, its programs, or chaplains personally, or due to you being a parent or a friend of RIT, I thank you for believing that religious, secular, and spiritual life is needed at an institution like RIT, and that it truly serves as a home away from home for countless students, staff, faculty, alumni, and friends. As our mission states, the Schmitt Interfaith Center is home to a multiplicity of diverse and inclusive communities that explore deep questions of purpose, meaning, and value. Our 40-year history is a testament to that vision, and we will work diligently and collaboratively to maintain that for the sake of our students becoming creative change makers and innovative leaders in this weary world. So thank you once again. Liam?
Thanks, Andy, for serving as our MC and moderator, and thanks to Sandy, Sam, Perry, and AJ for your time. Special thanks to our interpreters today, Kirsten and Derek. We'll send a follow-up email in the coming days with a link to today's webinar recording, as well as a link to the Spirituality and Religious Life website at RIT, which includes information to engage and support this important work at the university. And as always, we are here to help you direct your time, your talent, your treasure to whatever community aligns with your heart. So please reach out with any questions. And thanks for joining us today and wishing you all a wonderful, restful, and happy holiday season and new year. Thanks again.